Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to a special mini-review version of Shelf of Many Things. This one was inspired by another product I'm currently reviewing, Chalt from Corthalis Publishing. While my review of that is upcoming, and honestly should be up very close to the time this one's published, I noticed that the old-school system included within it, Crimson Dragon Slayer, was also available as a couple of standalone versions, a few of which are available for free, so I figured it would do well to take a look at the d20 version since it's closest to what I'm familiar with. Now, aside from the d20 revised version that I will be covering here, it is also available as a non-revised d20 version and a standalone d6-based system in both paid and unpaid formats of a 1-hour version. There are differences in both tone and playstyle within each one, so be aware of that, but all seek to make for a relatively quickly playable, rules-light system that feels like it can be played with a minimal of bookwork, and are compatible with a few of the other offerings from Corthalis Publishing, mostly their various adventures, although this mostly derives from the fact that they're all very simple. The D20 revised version is an expanded, standalone version of the system found in Chalt, and supposedly is slated to be included in the forthcoming Fuchsia Malaise. It is under tweaking and development during playtesting right now, although to be honest, there's only so much that can be tweaked due to the minimalistic nature of it. The PDF version of it, at least as of this recording, is only 15 pages long, with some of that devoted to cover, credits, and advertisements for a series of adventures for Corthalis Publishing's Alpha Blue system. It begins with an overview of the system itself and an assertion that character sheets are not required, although let's be real here, you're probably going to want at least a character post-it note or something to track your gear and level. This is accomplished by a distinct lack of ability scores or other such functionality in the Crimson Dragon Slayer system. Almost everything that might be considered notable stats in CDS are what I like to call derived stats in other games. In essence, depending on what level you are or what class you are or whatever, it's all just static, you can figure it out from there. Although no particular core mechanic is explicitly laid out, it is implied that a simple D20 comparison with modifiers against a target number is used, and you basically try to get higher or above those target numbers, just like any other D20 system. I'll get more into how it determines target numbers in a little bit, but for now just understand that Crimson Dragon Slayer D20 also borrows some things from other games, especially the disadvantage/advantage mechanic from 5th edition and other recent RPGs. There is a Divine Favor mechanic that can be used for minimal rerolls during sessions, a level cap of 10 overall, and level advancement based on surviving concurrent adventures rather than any hard experience totals, so milestone-based. There's also an open special ability or feat granted at certain levels that can be used to customize your class. Like low fantasy gaming, these are usually not defined and are left to the personalization of the player in conjunction with their GM, although a separate sourcebook, Chalt Ascended, has a number of examples available. Character creation follows, and as you have no ability scores, you simply select a class. Each class gives a number of hit points, the damage that they do, since damage is based on class rather than weapon, and a special ability of some sort. In prior versions of CDS, hit points were flat, and you can likely still use it as such, although in the revised version they do have a hit dice defined by class, as is common with many RPGs. There are only 4 classes available in the main system: the Fighter, who gets bonuses to attack and damage; the Wizard, who can cast any spell of their level or lower, trading hit points to fuel their spells; the Cleric, who has an at-will ability to heal people each round and an at-will ability to harm or control unnatural creatures; and finally the Thief, who gets automatic ability with a number of classic Thief abilities, additional armor class while unarmored, and a backstab ability that can do increased damage. These abilities themselves are expanded from the smattering offered in prior versions of Crimson Dragon Slayer and may seem a little bit unbalanced, especially with regards to the Cleric's healing ability, since it is really at will. There's no limit on number of times per day you can use, until you realize that with just how simple and deadly combat can be in this particular game, you need all the help that you can get. As far as character gear, you get a package of basic gear and weapons and a smattering of gold pieces, pretty similar to the starting packages of other RPGs. You can then choose a race, each of which has their own single special ability. While there are 12 listed, the openness of the system means that defining a new playable race simply involves naming it and creating a special ability for it. The included races are largely classic fantasy trope entries, elves, humans, dwarves, etc., but also include some science fantasy entries to reflect the cross-genre nature of many of the Court Thalas Publishing's works. The crystalline humanoid, the reptilian, and the droid, for instance. CDS uses a classic law-neutral chaos alignment system, but is joined with the general unaligned alignment from recent editions. Characters are simply finished by choosing something noteworthy about them, either a background information, possession, or another ability. This is pretty open. In fact, it's wildly open, although the GM is encouraged to balance out anything overpowered that the player chooses by assigning an appropriately counterbalancing flaw or weakness, so beware. The combat system uses an old-school style of 1 round equals 1 minute and 1 turn equals 10 rounds setup, with a GM fiat initiative system. In other words, you don't use fiat, you're simply assigned whether you or the monsters go first. There is a modern ascending armor class with only a bare-bones number of armor types in there. Attacks are your basic d20 versus AC, although there are way less modifiers, basically only for fighters or magic weapons. There are 3 different fighting styles beyond basic single weapon. There's the two-handed weapon, there's dual wielding, and then there's ranged weapons, each of which give different benefits. There is a natural 20 crit-based system, but there's also an epic act system which can let you try to do just about anything as long as you narrate it well and the dice are agreeable. Hit points are treated as in many classic old-school games, with survival but unconscious at negative hit points equal to the character's level, and beyond that, death. The miscellaneous rules follow and basically round out what you need to play the game, including a basic skill set rule that devolves most things to role-playing/narration, but provides for a single dice check for really difficult things, as well as a general assist action that can allow one character to help another when their own prospects look poor for accomplish anything. Saving throws are derived from a flat formula that is applicable to everybody, and hit point healing is just you heal completely up at each rest. There's rules for attuning magic items, but there's no limit on attunements. It's just there to give a way to identify magic items. And thus concludes the main rules of Crimson Dragonslayer D20. The rest simply involve sorcery or magic user spells, which consume hit points when cast. These hit points need not be from the caster. If you have access to a sacrifice and sufficient time to perform a ritual, you can use someone else's hit points. The spell list consists of just 6 levels of spells with just a few entries in each level. Most spells simply have a name and a description, although a few have more variable tables to allow for unpredictability on their use in combat. By and large, spells are just a little bit more powerful than those in classic D20-based fantasy systems, although this is largely handled through narration rather than any hard and fact stats. This is a change from the version which is included in Chalt, since that didn't actually have its own spell list, but simply functioned largely as an overlay of rules that you sat on top of another existing D20 system. And that last point pretty much summarizes the progression of Crimson Dragonslayer. It seems to have started as a set of house rules that sit on top of an existing role-playing game and has evolved into its own brief, standalone form, a system that I believe is fully accomplishing its goals. Where reading the version included in other products, CDS definitely looked like just a collection of notes, but the standalone version at least has cleaned up that format and seems like a proper system overall, even if it is an incredibly brief one. In terms of writing and structure, Crimson Dragonslayer D20 Revised is clear and concise, easy to understand and easily referenced. When I test played it, it ran as quickly as any other rules-light system I could care to name, and the lack of ability scores is very well compensated by the difference in class and race special abilities that really did give you a sort of personalization of the character despite there being so very little to personalize. I did initially have some concerns over the cleric's ability to heal being a bit overpowered, as I mentioned earlier, but that quickly faded, especially when considering the complete heal effects rests have. That kind of takes that pressure off. That does away with the kind of battle of attrition certain retro clones and other older systems allow, but CDS really isn't made for that sort of game. It's made for a quick, over-the-top, mixed-genre game that rewards quick thinking, bold action, and possibly dire consequences, all in good fun. There's not much more to say about it, simply because there's not much more to it. It's a simple system that lets you sit back and concentrate on having fun with the story and the game itself, rather than bookkeeping and character builds. I am rather impressed with it, especially as a freely available RPG, at least for what it's made for. And while I at first only really looked at it as an extension of Chalt, looking at it on its own, CDS D20 has impressed me enough that I've now got it slotted in for use on those gaming nights where I want to take a break from the usual and need a game where characters can just be thrown together in a matter of minutes, whatever the genre. In fact, I might have to look at the D6 versions soon. And hey, the price is right? Anyway, I think I will wrap it up at that. As always, I'll put a link to where you can pick it up in the description below. For now, this has been the RPG Crawler with this mini review of this mini system. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye.